So Corey Aperian, thank you for appearing with us today. And, one of the questions, of course, everyone has is, how do I make money? How do I work on Amazon? How does it work? What's the mystery of it? And, shipping, particularly as so many of our companies are going direct to consumer, can be a spot where you can spend too much money or lose money. So excited to have you with us today. You're the founder of Davinci. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that to get going, how you started it, why you started it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm definitely excited to be here. Davinci Micro Fulfillment is a micro fulfillment as a solution service built to help brands create profitability and a really great customer experience with the end customer, no matter who you're shipping through, whether it's Amazon, Macy's, your own branded website, a marketplace, it doesn't matter. I've been in the e-commerce space for about 16 and a half years. I have lived through all the pain points and opportunities that exist, and they're continuing to evolve. I've had a really unique vantage point. My 3-year-old, his name is Leo, so that's why we're Davinci. But I do believe that the world's going through an e-commerce renaissance, so to speak, and there's a lot of opportunity out there right now. I think brands have a lot of the control, and I think that if they assort their product and have a sound infrastructure where they can get product to the consumer quickly and profitably, they'll create great customer experiences and keep the flywheel turning, so to speak.
That's great. So I'm going to dive in. We had some great questions that were on the flyer, and they're all questions that I know I would like to know the answers for. So to start off, what are the key drivers of successful brands? What do they have to be aware of with their Amazon strategy? We all curious about selling on Amazon and how it works, and love your point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every category definitely has its own nuance, but the simple blocking and tackling across dozens and dozens, if not every category at Amazon, is have really great content and strong reviews and drive traffic to those pages. I was one of Amazon's first suppliers in 2004. And, I've helped them launch about 35 plus different subcategories. And those are the two real pillars, is really quality detail pages and drive traffic to those pages. And, when it comes to content, not having one image up, not having a bullet point, just be a color, telling a feature benefit story, interoperating search engine optimization with research and education, all those things drive conversion. And then also being smart about your assortment planning. Every category has a different demographic of shopper. Every channel does as well. And not putting every product on every website that's the same exact product, and understanding who you're marketing to is really important.
Gotcha. We did some sessions in the spring on Amazon and the different ways to sell. So if anyone wants to, kind of revisit some of those, where I think we still have the recordings, and happy to send them, but there are different ways that you can be on Amazon, correct? I understand.
Yeah. So quite simply, there's Vendor Central and Seller Central. Vendor Central now is more of an invite platform where it's their 1P wholesale business. So you sell to Amazon and then they take the product and they ship it to the end consumer, or you can drop ship through Vendor Central through what's called direct fulfillment. And still on the website, how you can see this is it says ships and sold by Amazon, which is different than fulfilled by Amazon. Fulfilled by Amazon and what they call merchant filled, which used to be called seller fulfilled. And there's some nuances to that because of Prime badges and Prime shipping. And essentially, Seller Central is when you're shipping through the marketplace and you're retailing to the end consumer, and Amazon takes a percentage or a fee structure off of that GMV or retail price, but you're really acting as the retailer through their platform and taking advantage of their traffic. In the early days, Seller Central was really um, very simple in the sense that you only really had cost to drive the product. So, most brands were direct with Amazon through a wholesale relationship, and were either drop shipping or most common where they were shipping bulk product to Amazon's FCs and they were shipping it out to the end customer. Over time, Amazon has evened out their Seller Central platform, and they have allowed brands or suppliers to have access to some of the same levers from a marketing perspective that they would in Vendor Central. Not all of them, but most of them are there. Some of the review building tools, while they're in Seller Central, a program that Amazon has called Vine, where you can actually ship samples of products to customers. They have to write a robust review. There's definitely scrutiny on all of Amazon's reviews, but it's a good way to get the conversation started on products. Sometimes when there's no reviews, people just don't write and add in, just like a social, community and a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed or whatever it may be. Content was a big driver. Extended content, what Amazon calls as A+ detail pages. There's a whole variety of different A+ pages that can be created today, specifically through Vendor Central. But you also have a lot of those same tools in Seller Central to add copy and marketing in below the fold on the website. Now, about 40% plus of shopping is done today through mobile. So a lot of shoppers don't even get that far below the fold. But for search purposes, aligning your content in the right way, having a combination of text and also imagery, and not text embedded in imagery below the fold is a smart way to approach it. That way you can still pick up the text through search and get credit for it, while above the fold on the left-hand nav of your screen, when you see the 9 images on the left-hand side, those are really meant for mobile. So you want to put text embedded in those images if you're creating your own copy.
Gotcha. Lot to learn. Now, what about the luxury store program? Because I think that could be a great opportunity I wonder if it could be a great opportunity at any rate for our members.
Yeah, luxury. It's interesting. There's definitely been some positive and other feedback on the luxury store at Amazon. I was helping Amazon in 2011 launch their beauty category when they broke that off from health and personal care. And over time, you saw a lot of the mass brands combine with the luxury brands. And what Amazon did was to help protect them and to get them onboarded directly into Amazon. They created a gated opportunity, meaning third-party marketplace sellers, unless approved by that brand specifically on their company letterhead and in their brand registry, could not be on the third-party marketplace in Seller Central attached to the same UPC in Vendor Central. So the luxury store created an environment for these beauty brands where they could market their products and not feel that it was being discounted by salons specifically and other distributors that were getting a hold of the product. It's a very, very similar thing that's happening in the luxury store on the fashion and accessory side at Amazon right now. I think they've been able to take a lot of learnings from that. There were a lot of issues early on with traffic, where a lot of the traffic and the sales velocity of the products were really driving towards the mass beauty stores, and consumers were getting a little confused when they would click into the beauty category and they would start browsing into a mass area and not see any of the luxury products, and didn't realize they had to click into another tab into luxury to find those items. There was some beautiful content created, and there is as well. And the unique thing about the fashion store, just to switch gears, is that Amazon's had a lot of success with influencers, as I'm sure everybody knows here. And those influencers have created an environment on Amazon where they've connected a lot of their own products directly to Amazon, and they are driving their own traffic to those pages. So Amazon has gotten around some of the issues that they had on the beauty side of it, because it's a different type of marketing environment now today.
Gotcha. I would guess too that would help with the fear of counterfeit, or knowing that you're buying something that's really from the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why it had to be gated, because consumers still to this day, I think a lot of consumers don't always know who they're buying from when they're on Amazon. They think they're just buying from Amazon, and maybe all of us may take some of it for granted because we're in the industry and we know that there's a vendor and a seller central on some level. But a lot of end consumers still don't realize that it's a third party who may be supplying the product behind the scenes in a seller central versus a vendor central environment. And there's definitely a lot of things that Amazon's doing to crack down on counterfeit, but it's definitely not a zero risk situation for many brands, especially in this category. So, that's where I very much believe in controlling your distribution as a brand and making sure you're assorting the right products in the right channels. There are places for independent retailers. There are places for all different types of merchandising. But knowing who you're selling to is very important. And the ecosystem is just way too small, and information is way too easy to get a hold of. And rampant third party sellers or retailers who don't always have a point of how they're merchandising a product. Like, I just to rephrase, like, I look at retailers as how are they building my brand, and if they can't really answer that question, then maybe it's not the right channel, because you don't have to be, you want to be visible in as many channels as possible. But I think there's something to be said for being visible in the right channels and understanding that a Google search or an own branded website, and Amazon specifically, like, they have their own followers and their own type of consumers that go and interact with those said channels. And you could find almost anything you want just in those three channels itself. If you have a relationship with a brand, you can find the item and get pointed to the right store or online channel. If you don't and you want to search for a category, you can Google it, or Amazon's actually typically above Google in terms of consumers coming to their site and looking for a product. But consumers are pretty, adaptable to that right now.
So that's a good stat. More people are searching for products on Amazon than they are on Google.
Absolutely, for a little while now.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So you definitely want to be there, not to be missed. Okay, next question is, how do resource constraints impact your brand's execution within the right channels? And what does that mean exactly? Can you explain and
Yeah,
walk us through? Yeah.
Even before the pandemic, most brands are asked to do the heavy lifting on e-commerce with the retailers. They're responsible for drop shipping direct to the consumer. They're responsible for getting the content on. They're responsible for forecasting, all these different components of the business. And not every brand is really set up for that. Certain categories maybe more than others. If you look at some of the mass channels, certain brands are very, very, very good at shipping into a Walmart, a Target, a Costco, whatever retailer is appropriate, right? But the smaller channels, the single piece pick, sometimes single piece returns on the reverse logistics side, deploying content, understanding how to work with different retailer portals, having people trained at the warehouse level, the marketing teams being trained in e-commerce versus other forms of traditional marketing that have been prevalent for a really long time. And now there's an evolution of different buying habits and consumer styles, and et cetera. And that's hard for certain brands, even some of the largest ones in the world, to really just go turn that on. And having the right partners in place that can do that, or start the process of training an organization, and maybe a minor digital transformation. Not everything's going to be digital. I still very much believe that brick and mortar is a really big part of the ecosystem, and will be for a long time.
Yeah. There's a lot of information in that answer. I'm going to go off of the question line. One of the challenges that we've heard from brands and our retailers, and you touched on it a little bit, is the returns. And what happens with these one-off returns that pile up? How do you handle that? What is the strategy for not having a pile of mixed up, shoes or things that might be out of season or,
Yeah, no, I mean, in this category, it's interesting. Obviously, there's, different channels in, like the Real Real and other areas where you can reuse and donate, and there's a human element to some of the product too. It's very different from, a bottle of shampoo that you really can't do much with once it gets into a customer's hands. So I think there's a component to this category specifically that you can kind of give back and have a return strategy on that side of it. From a cost perspective, reverse logistics is expensive. Anytime you touch a product, you lose money in a supply chain. There's freight, of course, which is one of the reasons that my business is a micro fulfillment business, which simply is miniaturized fulfillment centers in local areas across the country. And if you're shipping to or from the same region, whether it's reverse or forward logistics, it's obviously a lot cheaper. But having the right strategies in place by the retailers that you're selling to are really important things to be able to do. And, I think that's individualized for every subcategory and retail channel that's out there.
Gotcha. Good tips. So what are customers looking for from e-commerce listings?
That's a great question. A lot of the things that I talked about that Amazon does really well, they do them really well for a reason. And customers want selection, which Amazon has been, one of the strongest out there. That doesn't mean that every retail channel needs to have this really wide breadth of product. Narrow assortments for the right channels are really important also. Not everybody is Amazon in that cast a wide net. But I think that selection is important. Availability is crucial. Content and reviews, so they can have research and education. They can't physically try on a t-shirt, so they need to understand and see lifestyle imagery, a variety of sizes and colors or whatever it might be for that given subcategory. Those are things that are really important that customers look for.
Gotcha. Now, you touched on it again, but how does product availability, being in stock, forecasting accuracy, help your companies reach their target? And is that something that you help with? Are there tips that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, for Davinci, we do focus very heavily on that piece of it. We call that our network optimization. It's not just about putting products in the right locations, but also continuously forecasting them by channel and by region and by drive time, because there's different baseline and promotional and peak periods that have different nuances between one area of the country and another. Maybe, on Mother's Day, somebody in New Mexico might have a different buying habit than Manhattan for a different subset of items, on that same brand or even that same individual SKU. So, it's interesting to look at that. And the way that e-commerce really works is that if product is in a pickable location, whether it's in a store, a distribution center, an FC, whatever it may be, a third party, that's the way that it populates online. So you need to have it in stock and feeding to a website if you want somebody to buy it.
Gotcha. I'm going to segue, but because we've heard it, it's been on the news, people talking about shop early for holiday. How should a brand plan? When do you think the holiday shipping is going to peak? And for those of us who are probably going to all be shopping online for gifts too, when do we need to do this? Like, what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks with shipping?
Yeah, I mean, we're all at our computers now, so no time for the present. But I think now is really the time, truthfully. I mean, last year you saw on Black Friday with the e-commerce growth of averaging at about 11% per year last year. On Black Friday and Cyber Week, Amazon put their promise date of 5 to 9 days, depending on the region, where they were typically 1 day, 2 day, or same day deliveries. Now you insert the pandemic where there is just capacity issues at the retailer. There's capacity issues with the carriers. There's supply chain issues. There's brand switching. There's all of these things that are going on. And there's obviously, economic instability out there right now with the loss of jobs and, just everything that's going on in the world right now. So, it's going to be bad out there, I think, come Q4. I don't think the consumers are going to get their product in 1 to 2 days. And the truth of the matter is, since the pandemic, most online retailers will tell you, that every day has been peak season for them. They're at 30, 40% plus growth. I mean, Best Buy, obviously not in this category, but Best Buy is, experiencing 300% growth on their website. Amazon's business is obviously through the roof, and, you have Instacart and Shipt and other grocery last mile carriers, Postmates, things like that are, being maxed out. They're being turned on, but again, it's about availability in the right location. So there will certainly be regions that will lose out. California, specifically, Southern California, has been really challenging. There has been a lot of capacity issues. A lot of reasons for that is that it's also the quickest path from China in Southern California. So the port of Long Beach has been completely blocked up, and there's just a lot of freight moving in and out of there. And once they bring it in there and brands want to turn it into cash, then obviously your parcel carriers, which is still 95+% of your delivery in the US for UPS, FedEx, post office shipments, are equally as backed up and have over capacity. So there's delays picking product up, there's delays delivering it, there's delays getting it into the distribution centers on the parcel carriers to scan it. So your tracking is not available, and it creates a lot of customer confusion.
Okay, so everyone, plan early, like now, if you're going to sell it. You don't wait for Black Friday to start promoting, and do your shopping early for sure. This year, I also understand that there's staffing issues in the warehouses that, they just don't have enough help, getting the help out. We're hearing from some of our other partners that is also a challenge.
Amazon's sucking up all of the workforce right now in their own FCs.
Yeah. So what are some of the key challenges that brands and retailers typically face when attempting to fulfill orders from their D2C sites and across other channels?
Yeah, I think there's really 3 big components there. It's the technology, the capacity, and the service level agreements with those retailers. So if brands are shipping from one area of the country, there's obviously a lead time delay to the end customer. So offsetting some of that into other facilities or partnering with other third parties is really smart. And that helps offset the capacity of the workers too, who also have to do other core functions in that distribution center. Davinci, not as a sales pitch, but we focus on forward fulfillment almost exclusively. So that's what we're doing. Where other brands, they have distribution centers that are handling some store shipments, some e-commerce orders, handling returns, whatever it may be. And there's just a lot of moving parts to that. And if there's less people and more work to do, obviously that creates issues, which goes into the service level agreements, which if you want to drop ship for online, whether it's Amazon or, Nordstrom or Target or whatever demographic of retailer you're selling to, be able to hit their service level agreements and get the product out your door within a very short time frame. Otherwise, they won't let you do it anymore.
Gotcha. So you mentioned technology. What does one need to consider? What kind of budgets does one need? Like if you're a small brand that's just getting going, what do I need to invest in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most retailers traditionally are working through EDI. So being able to manage inbound EDI and outbound messaging to retail partners, but having the ability to handle API shipments as well, API data transfers, which Amazon and groups like Shopify are really doing. So you can take feeds out of their shopping carts and get into your system, whether it's a warehouse management system, a finance accounting system, or a ERP, enterprise resource planning system, and really be able to handle that order and then be able to turn it around in a timely fashion electronically as well, and ship it and message back with the appropriate tracking and invoice information. And that could be done really through a variety of different methods, but it's really dependent on the retailer and the brand and their level of sophistication. I think, certain retailers also have requirements on customized packing slips, customized label, specialized inserts and packaging. So being able to handle that and account for that inventory in a warehouse, you don't want to be shipping for Amazon and all of a sudden run out of labels or boxes to put your product in. That's where technology and tracking of inventory and supplies is crucial. And then the other thing, which is becoming really prevalent, is order management technology, and being able to take an order from any source and really route it to the appropriate facility if you have multiple partners or facilities in your network that are fulfilling direct to consumer.
Gotcha. I always love to hear stories. Can you give us an idea of maybe, you don't have to tell us who it is, but a client who's, figured it out, or, a little success story?
Sure. We have, figured it out. I think it's moving so quickly right now. I think just being stable is really figuring it out in this moment, just because there's so many moving pieces to it all, and you have to take kind of bite-sized chunks. But we have a brand who we onboarded in August. This particular brand's on the houseware side of the business, and they were shipping product from one facility in southern Florida to the whole country, and it was taking about, on average, 10.5 days to get to their consumers, and costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in freight expense, if not more than that. And we've taken their product, and by looking at the distribution density of where the product's going to and putting it in the right locations around the country, we've been able to lower their lead time to just under 2 days. So it's technically 1.4 days, but we'll call it 2 days from 10.5 days, and probably have saved them at least $500,000 on just freight.
In 2 months?
It'll be about 3 or 4 months, I would say, considering some stuff that we're doing now for them.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So I want to encourage everyone to if you have questions, put it into the chat. I mean, it's clearly this is a complex topic with a lot of different nuances. So I have to imagine that there are, there's questions out there. I'm going to keep going with mine till, the team watching pops up. But, are there categories? So our accessory world is so diverse. We go from soft knit items to jewelry to, are there certain categories that a fulfillment place will work better for? If I'm in fine jewelry, what should I be looking for versus, something large?
Yeah, no, I think, some of the larger products definitely lend itself to multiple facilities. I mean, jewelry definitely has more of an extended assortment. It's small cube product, but there's a lot of SKUs typically, and variations and trends and styles and everything that goes into that. And really, when you're talking about post office parcel shipments, jewelry could be mailed in the lowest, level based on the weight and the size of the product, and really get to most areas of the country in a similar time frame, and not really need a full micro fulfillment in every region scenario. Apparel maybe a little bit differently. Other accessories might be a little bit different as well. When you get into handbags and fashion items, shoes. We're finding we have a vendor in the shoe category that, again, very similar to the story I just told. They were around 8 or 9 days shipping across the country. By putting them in 2 of our facilities, we got them under 2 days and saved, I think, $25,000 per every 100K. So, every category has its own nuance, but accessories are probably an easier one where you only need, 1, maybe 2 facilities, depending on, jewelry, fine jewelry, depending on where the facilities and your customers are.
Gotcha. I have to imagine that speed of delivery has a positive impact on whether or not the customer is going to keep the item. Particularly in our categories, there are often impulse purchases. If I'm not getting it for a week and a half or 2 weeks, I might be more likely to return it. I don't have stats that say that's true, but I do have to believe that the faster we fulfill it, the more likely it is to be a sticky sale.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. It definitely keeps turning the flywheel, creates a really strong customer experience, allows consumers to keep going to that retailer and to keep going to that brand when they get a positive experience. So not only do they retain the product for longer and not make another buying decision in that process, especially for this category, but they keep coming back.
Gotcha. Now we have a question. How do you evaluate how and how much to spend on marketing efforts through Amazon?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We use some tools that help us with keywords and bidding processes, but Amazon is the largest advertising agency in the world now with their sponsored ads, and there's a lot of competition on certain keywords. And I think that there are plenty of brands who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, and there's brands that are spending $10,000 a month. I haven't seen many people have too much of an impact under that 10,000, but there's just more competition there now, and it really depends on the categories and how your customers are searching. And you really need to look at the data and look at your competitors and look to see what's out there, and then start setting budgets based on that. Amazon, you can set budgets wherever you want to, but there's a lot of A/B testing that goes into all of it, and it's really dependent on what your goals are, what you have in your profitability, structure to be able to afford to promote, what you're trying to get out of it, and expose your brand or drive top line or stay profitable and have some competitive blocking to other brands. There's a lot of nuances to how you would advertise and spend and where you would spend that money.
Yeah, so in your very first point that you made, where we're talking about the key drivers of success, you mentioned driving traffic. So obviously buying those keywords or the advertising is a great way to drive traffic. Are there other tips that you can offer to drive traffic once you've got your product up there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Amazon has a lot more levers to pull than other retailers. Utilizing their brand stores, and having a branded environment where you can drive traffic to those pages, even externally. You can track through your own social media how you're getting people to those pages and if they're going through that. So that's something that brands can control. There's other opportunities for cost considerations where you can have things like best deals and lightning deals that get surfaced up in Amazon search algorithms. If you're doing a 2 to 3 hour deal on their site, and it could get picked up based on glance views and impressions that happen on the product, which is all part of Amazon's search algorithm, and that can surface you. There's other types of banner ads. There's DSP ads, which typically are a little more expensive, which you'll find, your Procter and Gamble's and et cetera, who have large marketing budgets to invest in those. And some of those live on some of Amazon's non-retail properties, whether it's like an IMDb or, even on a Kindle device. And there's a lot of opportunities to work within Amazon's ecosystem. but AMS and their sponsored ads, and you're only paying for it when consumers click on the product. That has proven to be the most cost-effective way to advertise right now.
Gotcha. So do we have any other questions? I know I have a question. How, if I want to get in touch with you or, ask questions that are very specific to my brand or company, how do we do that? Now we have a recording session. We'll send it out to everyone again, because there's a lot of, you made a lot of points, and I have to believe that people will have questions as they kind of digest all of it. So I want to make sure that they have your email or the best way to get you.
Here. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Put it into the chat.
To reach out.
Terrific. Okay. Last call for questions, everybody. Got a shy group.
That's a good question. Is there a reason brands have not been successful using Amazon?
Yeah.
Not to steal your thunder, Karen, but.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah, I think there are some reasons. Reviews are a really important thing at Amazon. So having the right reviews at Amazon and driving traffic to quality pages is really important. Sometimes brands can just list an item and it can get lost in a sea. Also, it might not be, Amazon is the largest traffic website by far. And you definitely want to align yourselves with them, because there is a halo effect and an online versus offline strategy that has been proven for a long time. I think something like 85% of all brick and mortar purchases start with research on Amazon. Is a stat that I've always loved, and that's been around there for a really long time. That measuring of that data. So, some brands though are quite candidly maybe not in the right demographic for Amazon. Amazon has, definitely gotten more mass over the years. I mean, Amazon's fashion luxury store is trying to help that, and they're one of the largest fashion retailers out there now, if not the largest, I think, from a traffic perspective. But you have to look at the demographic who's shopping and the competitive products that are there, and have the right assortment planning for Amazon and know what levers to pull. So, you can hurt yourself just as much as you can be successful on Amazon, and you kind of got to do it in a smart way. Gotcha.
So Denise has a question in there on the Amazon luxury.
That's a great question too. I have some folks that I know in the luxury space, and we're on the fashion team, and I know they've been working really, really hard to get that launched, and it's very impressive what they've accomplished. I personally think that there is the really high-end luxury products, and Tmall has done this really well through Alibaba in China. And it's something that's interesting to pay attention to, because some of the demographics of the Chinese shopping habits, there's cultural differences, but the shopping habits at times can be very similar to the US. And I think the luxury experience that has been created through Tmall, with a direct-to-consumer approach with the brand, and the brand using their traffic to get in front of the customers, has been really smart. And I think that when you're looking at Amazon and omni-channel and your D2C site and then brick and mortar, which I think those four are like the main pillars of retail in the US today, specifically, the D2C portion of it, your own branded website, that's your chance to have your one-on-one connection with the end consumer. It's just you and them. You get the most data. You get to understand their buying habits. You get to track it. You get to talk to them and communicate with them. And that's a really important thing for all brands, but I think in this category specifically. And Amazon luxury has, kind of like a one-on-one shopper element too, that you can choose to opt into. But I think that's very different. And I think certain brands on the luxury side of it in fashion are probably going to have more success driving traffic through their own branded website, Instagram shopping, other mediums, where I think Amazon's a big net. And I think it's great to have product there and to market it and to have great reviews and great content, but not to put all your eggs in that basket.
Gotcha. So the follow-up question, it said, so if you're doing luxury, you have to compare to what others in the category are doing. I think it's a reaction to something you said in your answer before on Amazon.
Yeah. In the context of, just want to make sure I answer this correctly. So yeah, I think that if you're in luxury and you're looking at your competitive environment, when you're looking at marketing, you definitely want to see what your competitors are doing. I think if you're selling product to Amazon and multiple other channels, I think understanding the assortment and the demographic of that retailer and who's looking at that online shopping channel is really important from a marketing perspective and a pricing perspective. And I think that could end up determining some of the reviews that you get, the customer experience, the repeat purchases that come back there. Obviously, Amazon's the easy button. I'm sure a lot of us on this call have a saved credit card and addresses built into your Amazon Prime account already. I know I do. I get almost everything in my life delivered, from Amazon, and it's great. It's amazing. They've gone really far and adjusted to the customer buying habit and helped evolve the industry in a big way. And I think it's really positive. But I definitely think that other retailers are catching up too. And I think there's different products that could be appropriately sold at those other retailers as well. But Amazon's obviously a great place to put your product so that a customer can get it quickly and be happy with it.
Gotcha. There's a question about the algorithms. Do you share the algorithms on like product, or how does that work?
I don't share an algorithm personally, nor would Amazon ever do that. That's proprietary to them, and our data for other brands at Davinci is proprietary to Davinci and certainly to those brands. I would never, not have that respected that confidentiality, but there are tools out there, one that we use in particular for sponsored ads, that allows us to mine and look at competitive products and impressions and certain conversion details that can help brands that are advertising through this tool understand who's looking at what when they looked at their item before they made a purchase, what colors and sizes and features and benefits and other variables are causing that customer to purchase. And there's things that you can deduce from that information, and marrying that, which is one of the things of why I built Davinci personally, was to marry that to the POS data and having a dashboard for that given brand of all channels in one place, and they can measure POS against Macy's to Target to Amazon to their own branded website, just as an example, regionally on a baseline or given drive time, and then add those other variables that I mentioned just at Amazon. You can start to react to that data with a little bit more specificity.
Gotcha. There's a question from Denise. I don't know if there's an answer to that question, Denise. Does selling on Amazon luxury take away that special thing about luxury items? I know a lot of brands and companies that we work with struggle with, their distribution and what the best distribution is for their own brand and their own product. And, I don't know that there's an exact answer or science to it, but I know that, a lot of companies that have never thought about doing direct to consumer or selling on the websites like Amazon are certainly reconsidering it. What do you think, Corey?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I think it's very similar to what I was suggesting earlier about, the assortment planning and being smart about how you're doing that. And there's definitely a hard to find treasure hunt mentality to certain product categories. And I could see this category and all the subcategories within really lending itself to that. You know, off price was traditionally a really strong channel for certain products, and obviously the pandemic has, you know, prevented everybody from going into the stores and shopping in that treasure hunt. Like the brick and mortar store relationship today is more get in and get out and find what you need. And you know, consumers are going to Amazon and other channels, you know, to do that. You know, Etsy obviously has gotten a huge following for that type of product type and looking at that more personalized business. So I think if you're at Amazon, you're fishing where the fish are, so to speak, and they have tools that are better than others in terms of a halo effect and reviews and research and education. But I think you don't have to give every item to every channel. You can still create that treasure hunt mentality and be exposed at all these retailers, but just do it in the right way with your assortment planning. Um, you know, and that's how I would approach some of those things, depending on, you know, specific subcategories and product types.
I think that's an exceptional piece of advice. You don't have to put your whole line there. You could have something special or some things special there that maybe introduce the customer to your brand that they might not know about. So wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for the great questions. And Corey, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We will share the recording with everybody who's on, and make sure that they all have your information so you can follow up with him directly if you want to. And we look forward to seeing you all hopefully really soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Take care.